Welcome to the Head Shepherd podcast. I'm your host, Mark Ferguson, CEO here at NextGen Agri International, where we help livestock managers get the best out of their stock. Before we get started, thank you to our two fantastic sponsors for continuing to sponsor this podcast. MSD Animal Health is perhaps better known as Cooper's Animal Health in Australia and for their Allflex range across the world, with a comprehensive suite of animal health and management products. Heineken is a one-stop shop for wool harvesting and animal fibre removal. The Heineken team have a deep understanding of livestock agriculture, backed by Swiss engineering and a family business dedicated to manufacturing the best. We are grateful to our sponsors for their support, helping us bring Head Shepherd to you each week. And now it's time to get on with this week's episode. Welcome back to Head Shepherd. You're with Ferg. Great to have you listening along this week. We've got Greg Mirams on the show. Greg is the founder and CEO of Techion, or the providers of FECPAK, which you might be more familiar with that particular brand name. It's a fascinating chat about the road that company's been on, from the old microscopes sort of released in the 90s for people to individually worm egg count at home, through to their digital microscopes now, which are, as you'll learn on the podcast, doing more than just measuring worm eggs these days, measuring all sorts of stuff. And yeah, really, I think going to be a key tool in lots of farmers' toolkits, which they already are on many cents. We cover lots of things on this talk, including obviously worm resistance and the opportunity to test your way out of some of those challenges. Yeah, really interesting chat with Greg, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Before we get into that, this week we've released an article, I've actually written an article about condition scoring. It is actually titled Like a Broken Record, because I do feel like a broken record. We talk about condition scoring sheep a whole lot, and even been talking about it in cattle lately. It's just one of those tools that it never ceases to amaze me that we can't get uptake on. There's field day after field day recommending condition scoring, and it doesn't matter where we go, we find people that aren't doing that particular tool. And it's just, I guess it's really hard to manage sheep without checking the fuel gauge, and there's lots of excuses why we can't do it. But yeah, I just thought it was time we wrote another article about it, and why I think it's really important. And we cover off sort of some of the techniques and stuff that we recommend, and the need to do it with a little bit more precision than what some people get up to. So anyway, that'll be available with links from the hub and the website. So jump on there and have a read if you're interested. Right, we'll get on with the show and welcome Greg Mirams from Techion. Welcome to Head Shepherd, Greg Mirams.
Mark, how are you? Long time no see.
Good, mate. Yeah, I can't even remember when it was, but I do. We have caught up a few times. Yeah, you're obviously the founder and CEO there at Techion. Many people might kind of better know you by the term FECPAK. Maybe it's a product of yours that's had a massive impact over the years. But we might just start at the beginning, I suppose. Start where you began, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, Mark, it's kind of quick how time goes, because I did launch the original FECPAK product in 1992 at the World Ploughing Champs here. So it's been quite a journey, and not one I expected would land here, but we're still here and having fun, so that's good.
Excellent. So 92, obviously microscopes, and the opportunity for – is that when, I guess, individual farmers first had the opportunity to do their own egg counting from there on?
It was just emerging, Mark. Yeah, we were seeing some drug resistance around and people wanting to do tests, and at that time there was only a few labs that did it. Veterinarians didn't do it very much. So yeah, it was – from my perspective, my background is in farm systems and farm management. And so I wanted the ability to get data in my own, so I could make decisions on the farm in my own time. And that's the whole origins of it. So, and obviously went from microscopes through to the digital age, sort of coming into diagnostics.
Yeah. So I guess for those people who there's quite a few of those microscopes in cupboards around the place, and some of them still getting used. But I guess more recently, people have gone to the digital version. Do you want to just run us through sort of what that product looks like, and the kind of where people are using it, how they're using it, and that kind of thing?
Yeah, Mark. So very quickly, just on the tech, we around the sort of the mid 2000s, we saw emerging cloud computing. We saw emerging, imaging technologies. Because and we were going, how could this influence our business? Because although we'd had a lot of success selling FECPAKs, people often lost confidence with the microscope part, looking down, and it was also, if you're not doing it regularly, you lost confidence in that ability to get accurate data. By digitizing it and having someone else read that, trained technicians, and being able to then use and manage all that data, that became, our sort of opportunity. It also allowed us to scale globally, Mark. So that was something that we were struggling to do with the original microscope-based system. So where it really began is, if you recall, you've probably done many hours doing it. You used to crunch up some fecal material and you'd look up and you'd have to search up and down a slide to count them. So the first thing we did was that's actually really slow and tedious. So we developed and patented an innovative way of bringing all those eggs into one place. So we use what's called a meniscus, and we float the eggs into a bubble, and the bubble is stabilized by a rod, and that rod means that all of the eggs beach around the tip of the rod. So you actually can combine all the eggs into one place, which means we could image just the tip of the rod rather than having to search. So that was the first thing we did in the fluidics sort of area, and that allowed us to mean that you weren't having to send hundreds of images up through the internet or stream videos through the internet. You could just capture those. And then we developed these little portable imaging devices that are sold in FECPAK G2 and have been, around the world for, since that sort of first ones came on the market in probably around 2016 is when we first sort of hit the market with this digital tech. And
it's basically a light and a camera in there, is it? And an ability to connect to the internet?
Yeah, it is. Simplistically, it's a light and a camera and a computer. They're fully standalone in their own ability, so they just Wi-Fi connect to your phone or to a laptop or a tablet. They will work offline, Mark, online, and they can actually process and store all those images and upload them to the cloud at a later date if required. So yes, they are largely. That's where they sort of the origins of it are. What's happened now is that we've now sort of built another generation of these little devices. This is a completely different. This has gone from a sort of quite a unique little small plastic device, and we've gone to a cube system now. People say, why have you done that? The reason is because we've built from our origins of testing parasites in sheep and cattle and horses, and the business has transitioned into a platform business, Mark, where we're supplying digital microscopy to a range of industries. And some of our customers now are laboratory-based people. And so by going to a cube format, we could actually stack these things up to 3 high. And some of the latest work we're doing is actually feeding these devices with a robot arm. So it's a long way from the origins of selling those original FECPAKs.
Yeah, but ever evolving. You must. You obviously don't sleep well. You're obviously always dreaming up the next thing.
Yeah, well, I'm not allowed to have coffee. Apparently, they tell me I'm not allowed any of that.
Yeah, right. They don't. No one tries to run me without coffee. It doesn't go too well. But yeah, cool. I guess there's two major things that we interact with Techion, and one is obviously your phenotyping. So individual worm egg counts coming from a big chunk of New Zealand's ram breeders, or those that are interested in breeding for worm resistance, are obviously sending their samples your way, and we've got quite a few clients doing that. And then obviously the individual farms using your product to do those individual worm egg counts, the mob-based worm egg counts. I guess how big's that? Is it you're seeing that growing, the ram side of the equation or the individual phenotyping side of the equation?
Genetics, yeah. So just to clarify, we do mob tests and also individuals. That's a user choice. That's not us being prescriptive, Mark. So the system can be adapted to either or. Yeah. We've seen our FENAR WormFEC service grow extramentally over the last couple of years. It's been on a steady growth curve. The last 12 months has flatlined. I think that is a distinct reflection of not so much this year's returns, but the previous 2 years' returns. Very hard hit with where things were at. Ram sales were down, breeders were struggling. So that hasn't flown through. This last season has been about flatlining, but we are still bringing new breeders on. So it wasn't that we lost the market, it was just that breeders were being more selective and they weren't doing as many progeny. So, but it contributes, 35,000 samples a year that we would process on that regard. The real innovation space in the last 2 months, we've released full AI, artificial intelligence reading across all of our platform. So that means that any species anywhere in the world, you could submit a parasite test through the system and AI will return that result within minutes. So including in the breeding stuff, the turnaround of data is just going to get continually better and better, faster, more accurate, more consistent, more reliable, Mark, is the opportunity.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think I've sort of been saying for a while, I think the ability of AI and cameras mixed is where agriculture gets absolutely turned on its head. Like that's where the big opportunities are, is using image technology. And obviously this is a classic case of where it would work beautifully, I'm sure. And so that cube system is now, that's AI counted, or obviously you're sending the image up to the cloud and then AI in the cloud? Or
AI in the cloud. It doesn't matter which device processes the samples.
Yeah.
The reason for the cube system is because we've got now optical capacity or capability. You're getting into the 800 to 1,000 times magnification. So we've got work going on, for example, looking at bacteria in water and looking at gram staining bacteria and looking at cell counting. So the range of tests now that if it's not coming on today is coming around this type of capacity is going to change immensely. Particularly relevant for the agricultural sector is coccidiosis, and being able to speciate coccidia based on the little oocysts. Super important for getting much more selective about how we deal with coccidia in calf rearing systems or those types of environments. But facial eczema, another big one that's coming relative. So the change in imaging device really relates to what you're trying to actually capture and what sort of micron size or the path of particles you're trying to do. But to your point about AI, there's a lot of people talking about it. It's a very hot topic and it offers a lot. Living on the front end of it and actually have now to get a fully AI'd solution to the market has probably taken us 3 years and cost a lot of money. It's actually really quite difficult to do. So I think one of the things, depending what you're doing, if you're getting into more complex areas, Mark, it's actually quite a tricky thing to do when you're talking biological images and you're trying to use AI, because biological images means they're not consistent. It's a bit like automating a lamb plant processing. The lambs aren't all the same, and so it's very challenging. Just ask the Scott Technology guys. We're a bit the same. This is very difficult to do. But when you crack it, as you say, that's when I think a huge amount of opportunity opens up for industry in terms of accurate, quick, turnaround, automated. For people in the field who need data, that's hugely valuable to them.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so you're talking to the converted here. I've bled money for a number of years on Gene Smith doing the facial recognition stuff. So I understand completely that, the AI bit is cool, but the training sets are massive, and the nuance that you need to consider makes it quite difficult or extremely difficult, really. But like you say, once you do go through the hard yards, it has enormous capability. We were talking, I don't know if now's the right time to bring it up, but we may as well. You're talking before we started recording around speciation that's coming soon, which I think that's going to really blow the genetics game apart. I mean, we know that some worm species their egg count is more reflective of the number of adult females than others. So there's going to be some really interesting things happen around as we can do that real or near real time.
Yeah, so Mark, for your listeners, just to try and put some context around that, we know that there's half a dozen relevant species of parasites in sheep, and there's probably maybe 3 or 4 in cattle. And as you say, they are different. They affect animals different way, and they have different egg production. So at the moment, a fecal egg count or a worm egg count, a WEC, is a very blunt instrument, Mark. Like, it just gives us a baseline level. It's not very sophisticated. We can't adjust it for egg laying and all those other things, as you quite rightly say. So what's really powerful is when you know what proportion of your egg count is at each of these different species. Now, the trouble with that traditionally is you have to do a thing called a coproculture or a larval culture, where you've got to take some of this fecal material, crush it up with vermiculite, put it in an incubator for 10 days, hatch the little larvae, kill them in iodine, and then give them to someone who's super clever parasitologist to separate them into the little groups. Now, that expertise is getting hard to find, and it's very, very slow. And consequently, farmers really don't use it. And science don't use it anywhere near as much as they could and should. What we're trying to do is completely flip that opportunity and go, if we can take super accurate egg counts using this type of device at high resolution, and we can use digital tools to very, very accurately measure and feature these different eggs, we can accurately then separate them into the separate bins. And we can do that from an image. So you don't have to wait 10 days. Initially, it will be done with technicians working online images, Mark. So they'll be uploaded. A technician will log on and they will analyze these egg counts using these tools. We will do that for a period of time to, as you say, to build the data set. In other words, enough technicians doing enough egg counts, and then that will inform AI to do it. So the first step will be online technicians doing that work. The second step will be artificial intelligence doing it. But you're then talking about being able to turn around that data super quick. Now, where that's relevant, if we talk your passion, which is genetics, if we look at that first, clearly that opens up this new data that we've not had. And as you and I were just talking off air, what does that mean for heritability? Can we get more granularity? Can we see differences and see what these sires are actually exposed to, not just a bulk egg count report? And I think it's got lots of merit, and you and I probably could grab a beer or coffee and talk about that for ages. But that tech is coming. If we look at on-farm, your homeland, particularly, they have one particularly major passion in life, and that is to know if it's got homunculus in it. Has it got barber's pole parasites in there? Because that will influence their decision. And the other issue with Australia in particular is that they're very remote. So, distance to get that information is so super hard. Well, we're talking about the ability to do that digitally online very quickly, turnaround. And so now everything I've just mentioned is relevant to New Zealand as well. But probably what we're interested in is even a more broader understanding of the parasite species, because we've got terrible resistance profiles with Trichostrongylus in the autumn. So farmers are going to be moving towards what's more of a matrix decision. What parasite have I got, and which drug do I know will kill that parasite based on what's actually happening, not what's on supposition or guess or a 1980s chart that says you get it at this time of the year. So as we move forward with breeding, and particularly in the face of drench resistance, having real-time or near-time speciated data will become the norm, Mark. It's the opportunity that we've certainly invested in. Yeah,
no, it's exciting on lots of fronts. And as you rightly predict, the one that I'm most excited about is the genetic potential to, we know that those worms have quite different actions, so it would make sense there's different genetic components of what's going on in those sheep that resist those worms. So I guess we always know the more accurate we do things, the more data we've got to do things, the better we go. Like it's always how it rolls. So it'll be a very exciting space. I guess if we think back to what FECPAK started with and how that's currently, like, that technology is still used heavily throughout the world, I'm sure. Certainly I see it in Australia and New Zealand. For those who are maybe sending their samples off to the vet now, give us the sell on why people should do it themselves, I suppose.
Well, sometimes it's just purely situational, Mark. Like you just live too far away to get tests. One of the things that you will hear a lot when you're in industry is, we need to change behaviour. Farmers aren't changing behaviour, and we get this messaging. And the reality is, if you actually study behaviour change, and it is a science, and we've looked deeply into this area, one of the reasons or one of the motivations for change is that you've got to have a why. Why do I need to change something, whatever it is?
Yeah.
But the other one is that if you don't have access to change, if you don't have access to technology or data or information, then no matter how much someone says it's a good idea, it doesn't happen. And so if you've got to pick up fecal samples and send them away, and and they might be reasonably close, but you've got to wait for those to be done, and then you get the results back, and however they come back, that is a pain point for producers, because that length of time means that data is not as valuable as it would be if I could just go, I've got it now. So a lot of the motivation for operators to pick up our technology is that they want information, they need it now. They need to They were out shifting a fence and they went, we're going to pick up a sample, come home for a coffee, bang, got my result. I need to treat these animals. Like that. That's the sort of using it like that is very different to sending it off to someone. Yeah. So that's a big one. You've just got the logistics issue too. If you're too far away, people can't do it. So why would you not do it on farm? And what we've done is we've taken a lot of the pain away. Preparing a sample and putting it in the device is very, very a logical, simple prep process, whether it be setting up a seed drill or making a cake. It's just do this, do that, put it in the machine. And to get that now pinged back on a phone where you're not asking farmers to be technicians, they don't have to look down a microscope, means that fear factor is less. We battled early days, Mark, because we were sort of right at the forefront of farmers with Internet of Things devices, connecting to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And well, now it's very common play now. I see farmers doing this all the time. They're not unfamiliar. You only have to look at a modern tractor and see what it does. So the fear's gone out of it a lot more now, and the focus has gone on to what it can do. The other thing, Mark, that I'd share to answer your question is, people go, oh, you make these things, takes pictures, sends a sample off. Yes, that generates data. It doesn't generate information, it generates data. So our real passion is actually turning that data into information and connecting it to operators. So we have tools on our system where animal health advisors or veterinarians can set up integrated animal health programs with their producers just by inputting key dates on that specific farm for that particular event. And our system will automatically message those expert little comments. They'll text it, email it to them on those dates to all the staff, so that basically it's like having the expert with you, guiding you through the program all year to give you a nudge. Hey, we said that we've just moved those hoggets onto a crop. We should check they haven't got parasites with that feed change. Yep. And so there's a lot more support tools that come wrapped around the product. It's not just, I've got a bit of kit that I can do an egg count with. It's a fully integrated solution, not just one tool.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, obviously, that one number, when you do get it back, we know that there's variation in the mob, but we also know that depending on what the situation is, that a 300 eggs per gram, for example, might be something that you definitely need to drench on, or something you don't have to worry about, depending on what type of animal that is, what feed they're on. There's a whole range of nuance in those decision making, which is really important. I guess the last 3-5 years, maybe in New Zealand, I mean, drench resistance has been something we've talked about for a few decades, but it became almost a household conversation in the last few years, and that's where this sort of technology, I guess, comes into its own. We've had decades where it's kind of been easier just to whack a drench down their throat than think about it, kind of thing, and we now know that has created some issues for us, and I guess once you do get resistance to the majors and you're having to use some of the novel chemicals, that sort of just drench them mentality is a quite expensive thing to do. So we're seeing a lot of practice change, or a lot of mindset shift around internal parasites in the last few years, as people are finding that their drenches are less effective than they once were, or they hope they would stay.
Yeah, the resistance profiling, Mark, it's and for those listeners who have heard me or met me over the years, I have been talking about this for a long time, but it's never an issue till it hits you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like human beings by default, we're a bit reactive.
Yeah.
That's always someone else's problem until it hits you. And I can honestly say, Mark, the number of clients we have that are, or people that are coming to us in a lot of trouble, and they're going, I don't know what to do. We've had, we threw triples at it for a long time, and now they're failing. And if you just look at the pharmacy, we've got a lot to thank abamectin for, because if you look at all of your combinations, what's the one thing they have in common? They have abamectin. And it's always been my fear that when we lose abamectin, we're in a power of trouble. And we're seeing that now. And one of the things we're seeing, because we do a lot of reduction testing as well, it's part of our Drench Smart service, and And we're seeing just a consistent hockey stick of failure. And people say to me, well, why is that occurring? Most of it, Mark's occurring because we've now got triple resistance failure, primarily to Trichostrongylus, but on a third of New Zealand sheep farms. And that's replicated across Oanui's data and others doing it. We see a very similar trend. And when you talk to the industry and you say, well, when you move your sheep around, what do you quarantine with? Oh, we give them a triple. Now that means you've got a 1 in 3 chance of missing, because there's a 1 in 3 chance that you will get animals that you've drenched them, but it didn't work because they've actually got resistance in them. So a lot what's happening now, and the reason for the hockey stick is actually not so much related to behavior on farm. It's just as much that we are moving this problem farm to farm, particularly post-drought, particularly on farms where they've grazed stock out. Sadly, we're seeing breeding operations who have had really clean bill of health, and then they've grazed their hoggets out, and then they've brought the problem in. Within 2 years, we're seeing breakdown, So we really need our industry to truly own quarantining, and it doesn't get enough of a highlight. And the one thing that I would suggest, this is not expensive. It is very easy to do, but when you bring animals onto your property and you quarantine them, or someone has said they've quarantined them for you, please do a post-treatment egg count, because it's real simple. If that's clear or zero, you can confidently let those animals out. Or, and when I say let them out, I mean onto the broader farm.
Yeah.
If you've got a positive egg count, you need to do something about that, because they are not your parasites, they're someone else's, and you've proven that whatever you've done has not killed those parasites. So I use the analogy, and you'll have been around this, how many of your farmers would allow foot rotty rams to run off the truck? Just not going to happen, right?
Yeah. Well, we've got
this problem, yes, you probably have got a few, but this problem is bigger than that. It's more dangerous, and yet we don't use the same philosophy. And the only reason we don't is because we don't have any data to support it.
Yeah, and anything that's hidden, we can't see those worms, so we kind of assume they're not there almost, and that's the beauty of, we're much better at things that direct, like foot rot or fly strike, something we can obviously see. We're much better at understanding that than we are the stuff that's kind of internal and hidden until we see the consequences of it, but not the individual damage.
Correct. So another use case, as we were saying just before, is protect yourself. And then to answer your question, I get a lot of farmers coming to me going, I don't know what to do. I can't see any options. I can't see any sunshine out there. And I just want to assure listeners, you can manage drench resistance. You can evolve your management systems, and you can not just live, live and survive. You can thrive post-resistance if you step back from your traditional thinking, understand what you're dealing with, and looking at it as an integrated solution. It's not a one thing. It's not buying a FECPAK's not going to change you. It's not buying a resistant ram is going to change it. But when you combine these things in, Mark, you can absolutely farm in the face of drench resistance. There is a future. It's just getting the right support, the right technology tools, and the right program to match your own farming operation, and away you go.
Yeah, that's said really well. And for a long time, there's been individuals out there have helped people bring back some of these chemicals that they've lost. You can, with careful management, you can actually bring them back to effectiveness, we're essentially playing the genetics backwards for the worms. We've bred them to be amazing, and we can breed them to be less amazing as long as by diluting them down with ones that aren't exposed to these chemicals. I guess my current fear is we've got capsules back on the market, and people are going to launch back into some bad practices maybe, but it'll be interesting how that rolls out.
Yeah, the capsule reintroduction is interesting, because people say to me, in some quarters, I've had this sort of comment, it's capsule's fault and I use capsules, or someone's, to be honest, you say, but did you quarantine anything? I may not have been capsules at all. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And capsules, to me, the best analogy I can use, Mark, is that it's like nitrogen for grass growth. Do you use nitrogen on your paddocks, on the same paddock, year after year on the same date? And people go, no, I only use it I used it 1 year because we were really short. It was the best option.
Yeah.
Well, why do you think that capsule use should be any different? Used well for the right reason, they can be a super effective tool. They can be super effective and they can really, really make a difference and actually can minimize a lot of drug use off the back of it. They're not the dark evil necessarily that people portray them to be. But you're quite right, Mark. If you use it poorly, you'll get a bad result. It's the same thing with anything in life. Use badly, you will get a poor result.
Yeah, 100%. That's true. And all of these things, I guess all animal health treatments, really, it's about how tactical we can be. And that's when you do get into a program of battling drench resistance, and it's often obviously really careful use of refugia and careful use of quarantining and all those things that you've mentioned. There's lots of things that we can do if we just stand back and think about which animals are at risk and therefore which ones need treatment. But I guess to swing this back to your products, it's knowledge is power. It's having that information rather than kind of looking at them and seeing them they've got a bit of scour, or they look a bit hollow, or they look a bit down, and we give them a drench. Whereas it could be something completely non-related to internal parasites, or it might be a low egg count that's not actually requiring a drench on that day or any treatment at all. It might just be, and that's the beauty of, I guess, as people learn to love their Techion gear, it's kind of ability just to monitor, like, 150 eggs per gram, we'll wait a week, we'll test them again, we'll see what they are, or we'll test them again the week after, and then they see them start to come down, they start to learn that, how did I manage to achieve that so that I could do that next year? Like, it's, I guess, some of that, what I see when we bring data into people's lives in a more consistent way is that they kind of, the pattern recognition that they start to form from when those worms turn up and what the management was leading to that kind of, you can kind of learn a lot by having more information than we have had previously.
Totally agree, Mark. The other thing I'd add to that is the way people use an egg count. Like, if we tested your hoggets right here today and they were at 2,000 eggs per gram, and you go, oh my God, I need to treat them, right? It's pretty tricky time, early winter, can be a bit challenging. And these egg counts, they can blow out like that. But the part that we don't often talk about is we go, okay, let's deal with that. And if we use an effective drug, we will clean them out and away they go. But I'm also going to go, where are they? Where are they? And how long have they been there? Because they might have been on the last of the late grazing before crop, and they probably, at a guess, have just really built that burden in the last wee while. Yeah. So I'm going to say, hey, Mark, what are you going to graze through there next? Yeah. Don't go and put your two-tooth twin lammers on that plate, because that's heavily contaminated. You've just tested it. So one egg count, just one egg count helps you go forward, but it also tells you what's just happened. And you can, so we use egg counting in a different way to many, Mark. We use it as a way of contamination mapping. Who's dropping the worm burdens where and when are they doing it? And then what can we do to clean that larvae up? Yeah. That's the trick.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And it's a great point, actually, knowing those hot spots to get some cattle onto, or something or some mature age girls that are going to be less impacted if you have to use it, or however that works. But again, knowledge is power, knowing that that's what's in that paddock. It's because you can't see them but they'll be there. Yeah.
Mark, just one other point, something for your industry listeners. We've partnered with an Australian company, actually, called Kinetic. Don't know if you've come across Kinetic, but Kinetic are a business that their specialty is that they collate industry data. So some of this is open source industry data that could be soil temperatures, rainfall, soil types, stock numbers. This is all industry stuff. But their art is that they then project that and they connect all that data onto geolocation maps. So basically a digital Google Earth, Google map. We've partnered with them and we plug our data from an industry into that live map. So we're now at a point where you can look at Australia, for example, and we're just bringing New Zealand online as well, and you can click an area and it will tell you what the worm burdens are doing in that particular region. And it does it live, and it does it from any source. It could come from our lab operators. It could come from our veterinarians, our rural retailers, or our farmers. We're collating all of that data. Now, where it's super powerful is that you can look at, well, why have we got that spike of, look at that region's gone, boom, and you can start to go back and say, well, what were the weather patterns? Because you can literally slice it just live on the screen.
Yeah, right.
Now, this is how industry can start to truly move the dial by having a live database of disease profiles. And we will be adding speciation into that as well, Mark. Obviously, when that technology comes on, all of the stuff, coccidia, facial eczema, will all come through this pipeline. So there is another whole wave of where that whole tech joins up to present industry data that is useful to all in a live format.
And that'll be accessible through your platform, or?
Yeah, either by Kinetic, because a lot of industry bodies already subscribe to Kinetic. So this would just be a simple choice. Do you want parasite stuff or not? Switch it on, switch it off.
Yeah.
Or via us, yes.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. That's where things get really, really powerful. I just wanted to have a quick chat about coccidia. I was in Canada last year, and coccidia is something that will make most in-housed sheep operators sort of go into a cold sweat.
Yeah.
What's your technology is just as effective at measuring oocysts as it is at egg counts, or?
Yeah, so we've actually developed this. It's our European team who have developed and been at the forefront of this, Mark. So we were the recipient of an Innovate UK grant with our partners, Raft Solutions. Now, Raft Solutions are a research arm of a veterinary group in the UK, and we've co-developed and validated the speciation of oocysts based on morphological differences. So in other words, what do they look like? We can then separate them out for ruminants, both sheep and cattle. That product is not available today, but it's in the next 3 months. It will be released, 3 to 6, depending which market. And so effectively, Mike Taylor, the godfather of coccidia, literally wrote the Bible on it. Mike's been over this project and guiding us. It was his library that we referenced, Mark, to develop that product. So the answer is yes, for all the same reasons that we just discussed in internal parasites, right? We just use it's exactly the same rationale. It's just a different disease. Yeah. So that's the story with coccidia in ruminants.
Cool. All right, Greg, that's been a fascinating chat, and it's awesome to see someone who continues to innovate from being innovative from the start, but things are always evolving. Like it's not heaps of companies that keep evolving at pace, and it's great to hear all the things you're up to and what's coming into the future. Before we close out, there's a couple of questions we always ask, and so we'll ask them now. Who's the best person you've had the opportunity to learn from?
It was actually Sir Paul Callaghan. If you've never watched it, he passed away some years ago, and they named Callaghan after him. But Sir Paul Callaghan was, I think, in my opinion, he was an unsung hero. He was recognised in many ways, but if you go back and look at a presentation he did some years ago before he got sick, he plotted New Zealand's future, Mark, and he talked about technology and how to get the best out of technology and really how we shift the dial. It's a fascinating watch, and it resonates with me to this day, his messaging at the time. And in effect, it's formed a huge part of our strategy is still based on his view. And that is to build technology businesses in obscure areas that have high impact. And that's what we do.
That's 100% what you do. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And the final question, Greg, is the last thing you changed your mind about, which often people struggle to answer, but we'll see how you go.
I was going to go and watch the Highlanders play the Chiefs, and I changed my mind.
That's always a good idea.
And I got that right.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, Greg, thanks very much for your time. For people if they want to find more about you, it's we'll put the website, the Techion website in the show notes. Is there anywhere else you'd send people to
for our industry? I'd actually I would send them to the FECPAK website, Mark, because that's the agricultural products. Yeah. The Techion website is talking more because just to leave you on this note, this very technology that was developed in sheep shit and cattle shit, where in the next sort of 3 months it's going to appear in regional New Zealand to support human tests within our healthcare system. So I think it's something that we should feel pretty proud about, is that this evolved technology is going to be doing a range of human tests. So next time you live in the regions and you go and get a urine test or a blood test, they might be using the same tech that you use on the farm.
Yeah, right. That's pretty cool. And that's what happens when you operate without blinkers, I suppose. You're always looking for those opportunities.
Exactly. But appreciate the time, Mark. It's been good to catch up.
Thanks, Greg. Really enjoyed that chat. And we'll catch up soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks again to Heineke, who are proud world leaders in the manufacturing and supply of professional sheep shearing and clipping equipment. Thank you to MNSD Animal Health and Norflex Livestock Intelligence. They offer an extensive livestock product portfolio focused on animal health management, all backed up by exceptional service. We thank both of these companies for their ongoing support of the Head Shepherd podcast.